All right. Welcome back to Odyssey. So today's session is called the Conductor. And in this module, I want to talk about delivering incredible group coaching sessions. And when you are delivering group coaching, you want every member of your group to feel connected, engaged, excited, seen, and heard. You also want to avoid getting into deep one-on-one conversations with an individual in a way that doesn't benefit everybody else. So I want to show you how to do that. Even if a question comes up or a challenge or a topic or comment that seems very specific to one individual, I want to show you what to do to support everybody else. And the mission of all of this is to create community. So in the training video for this session, I shared 3 keys to creating community that will help in running group coaching calls. And if you haven't seen it yet, I think you'll like it because I talked about how I learned all of this from Lady Gaga. So if you haven't seen that training yet, check it out in campus. The super short story is that in 2014, when I started Archangel, I was doing a lot of research into building community and studied different industries. And one of them was the music industry. And I thought, I wasn't actually a fan of hers. I kind of liked her music, but I just wanted to figure out what is it about her that's making her crush it in the music world while all sales are declining for everybody else. So I bought 2 tickets to her show. I went to her concert. I was the only person there, I think, with a notepad and a pencil, like literally taking notes. And what I share in the training was the notes I took and what I came up with. So you can check that out. I want to take you through a bunch of tips today on how to lead a group coaching call. So tip number 1 is what I call instant intimacy. If you haven't ever led a group coaching call before, typically on your first call, the people or your members will feel shy or reserved, awkward, and nervous. It's actually very natural because they're all strangers to each other. And what you want them to do is spend some time talking about them and having them share about themselves. So what I suggest is to use the dream conversation as a framework for group connection. And as an example, here is a series of slides that my partner, Dr. Stephanie, uses when she's on her first call. This is specifically to women going through her Estima Diet program. So she'll say, what has to happen in the next 90 days in terms of your health for you to consider the transformation a dream come true and consider yourself a success story for the Estima Diet. And she'll get the members to put their answers in the chat, and then one at a time ask them to come on camera and share their answers. And the next question is the kryptonite question. What could be your biggest challenges to prevent your dream from coming true? Same thing, put your answers in the chat, and then come on and we talk about these things. And finally, 2 more, the gift question, where could you use the most support from us and the other members over the next 12 weeks to make sure your dream comes true? And what she calls the heroine question, I may call it the hero question, but all of her members are women, so she prefers this word. Who do you need to become to make your dream come true? What behaviors, routines, and habits can you create to ensure you become a success story? These are dream conversation questions. They are enrollment questions, but you can also ask them to members as soon as they join in a group for connection. And you also want them to write in the chat first so that you have a record of what they've said, because that language is golden. But the cool thing is you get them to unmute, they come on camera, and it creates bonding and connection because they realize, oh, I'm not the only weird one who thinks I'm the only one in the world who has this problem, or whatever the context is. They see other people who are just like them, and they start to feel connection. Tip number 2 is protect their positivity. So as I'm going through these tips, you'll start to see what we do on our calls and be like, oh yeah, Gio does that too. Oh yeah, Gio does that too. How do I start every call I've ever done in the history of Archangel? I say, hey, share your wins or gratitudes or progress. Now, here's why I do this, because you don't know what's happening for your members the minute before they log in, especially if you're using Zoom. They may be having a fight with their spouse. They may be in a tussle with another coworker. They may have stress with their child that doesn't want to go to school that day. And what you want to do is reframe them and refocus them into a state of positivity so that they feel safe in your container for that hour or however long your coaching call is. and safe to be themselves and safe to share. So I love always starting with positivity. The third tip is what I call zooming out. So zooming out is when someone asks a specific question or has a comment that feels like it's selfish or feels like it pertains only to them and super highly specific to their paradigm. And it's going to be different for all of you. Like in my case, someone may ask a business question that's specific to their industry only, that doesn't make sense for everybody else. So that's fine. What you don't want to do is get into a deep conversation with one person that has no relevance for anybody else in your call, no matter what the context, because you want everyone to feel like they're a part of the conversation. You want it to be valuable for everybody. So what I do is something I call zooming out, which is essentially to answer the question to the entire group. So if Martin was on a call with me and he said, Gio, how do I I'm trying to come up with a fun question. How do I find specific clients who want to repair their motorcycles? I'm just making up something strange. And no one else in the group has a motorcycle repair business. What I might say is, okay, that's a great question. Here's what I want all of you to think about. So I'll use a bridge phrase like that to wrap everybody into the conversation. And then I'll try to answer the question as it pertains to everybody, because not everyone may want to find clients for a motorcycle repair business, but everyone wants to find more clients for their business, right? So the idea is to zoom out so you make it less specific, even if the question was specific. The next tip is what I call opening the toolbox. So I want you to think of every training you do as if you're giving your clients tools from a toolbox. And I want to take you quickly through part of a training I've developed in our Archangel Academy group. The training is called the Toolbox Formula. And you can think about designing your coaching sessions as a tool using this very simple framework. And it's super simple. We all learned it or most of us probably learned this in grade school. Does this look familiar? Who, what, when, where, why, how? So for every training session and coaching call that I prepare for and that you prepare for, this is how you can think about it in terms of prepping your coaching. So the who is fairly obvious. It's the people in your group, but you still want to think about the who first. So who is this tool designed to help? What are 3 to 5 key things they need to know based on whatever the context or subject matter is? And you can highlight the 3 to 5 main things, like to zoom out and be meta. The tips from today's session are my 5 things, right? Where will this tool get them on their journey? So if you think about them walking on a path that you're supporting them from their present day future to their dream come true reality, where does this tool get them in terms of milestones? When do they need it on their journey? Why do they need it? Why is it important? How do they get there? And what are the action steps? So these are the questions I like to pre-frame every training I do before I get into designing what I'm going to be talking about. And with respect to tools, to show you how I do this, here are some tools I've created for our Archangel Academy members. For those of you in Academy, you'll recognize all of these. So the 90-day North Star is one of the tools, something called the Super Connector, where I teach a framework for reaching out to other entrepreneurs who can endorse you and refer you to their clients. The Revenue Accelerator, how to have a record-breaking revenue month in the next 30 days. The Content Machine, how to have something to post on social media every day for 28 days so you don't have to think about what am I going to share. And your tools are not only useful for your members or your clients, they can also help you attract clients. So when I taught this toolbox formula to our Academy members, this is what I shared, that if once you come up with the tool, they can become what I call a gift, or what the internet marketing world calls a lead magnet. So if you go to our blog, you'll see there's a post on creating a content machine, another one on how to accelerate your revenue. And then on those pages, it'll say, if you would like a copy of this tool, give us your email address and we'll email you the tool. So the tool that you teach to your clients, or that you even co-create with your clients, can eventually become a marketing tool to attract more clients. And this is what the page could look like. Here, just provide your first name and email, and we'll give you the content machine. So please, as a nugget for today, as you're developing your coaching programs and you start to think of things as a tool, you can also co-create your marketing with your existing clients. Tip number 5, ask the magic question. So how many times have you heard me say this? What's been most useful so far? And where do you need clarity? This question I ask basically at the end of every training I do. The reason I ask is because it'll help you gauge what's working. It'll help you gauge where people need more support on future calls, and it'll help you fine tune your program for future cohorts, right? So if you ask what's been most useful so far, you'll see what comes up the most, and you'll understand, okay, those are the most relevant, impactful nuggets that I've shared today. And then where do you need more clarity? Will help you figure out, okay, this is where I can fine tune future trainings I'm doing. And this is why, by the way, I say when you are launching your program for the first time, you don't want to have the whole thing figured out. You actually can't. You need that feedback loop from your clients to figure out what is most relevant for them. If you try to invest dozens and dozens of hours designing all of your coaching, you're still going to have to change it. So instead of doing that, have a more sort of loose structure and co-create it with your first founding members. And then for the second group and your third group, you're still co-creating. You're making things better and better and better every time. And then tip number 6, end with a mission. So give your members an assignment to complete in between sessions. Now, your mission, see how I'm doing that? Always being meta. Your mission for this week is to answer on top of creating and working on your love letter and your hand raiser, there's this post that I just shared a couple hours ago in the discussion of Odyssey. Where do you need the most help right now? Comment on that post. That's your mission, to let me know where you need the most help right now. And what I love to lead by example and sort of do what I teach. So everything I just shared in terms of running a group coaching call is what we do. So how you answer that question will allow me to figure out how to co-create future modules that we're doing. Even though there's the framework laid out in terms of what's happening on the next few calls, this still helps me design and fine tune the trainings so that it's more and more customized for all of you. Can anyone guess what question I'm going to ask you next? Who wants to guess? You can type it in the chat. Yes. What's been most useful so far? See how it works? So please share in the chat from today's session so far what's been most useful. Okay, Davide, you're hilarious.
I have to get off the
So he wrote in the chat, do you act your age or your shoe size? Let me tell you a 30-second hilarious story. When I was in 7th grade, my best friend, his name was Gamal. So we were 12 years old, and our teacher famously used that phrase, act your age, not your shoe size. And once she said it to him, and he said, Miss, I'm 12 years old and my shoes are size 13. What do you want me to do? And to me, it was one of the most memorable moments ever. We had a 20-minute laugh attack in the class. So thank you, Davide, for reminding me of that. Okay, so let me hear from a few of you. Ronnie?
Well, it was exactly what we all have hoped, and that is that you give us a line-by-line plan of what to do and how to do it. It's great.
Thank you. Cheyenne?
Yeah, I think having people comfortable in a Zoom call is challenging. And what you suggested, I think, is very helpful to create connection and comfort and kind of have people let their guards down.
Yeah, I think it also depends on context, meaning are they used to Zoom calls? Everyone has a different experience. I think because of the past couple of years, people are generally more accustomed to it. This was way different 3 or 4 years ago. If it was their first time ever using Zoom, you almost had to explain to them how to download things and how to log in. Now, a lot of that's changed, but people still, like, they may show up with their camera off, or so you have to preempt a lot of these things to make them feel safe enough to show up and at least type in the chat, and then eventually they'll want to come on camera. And then once they see that they're safe or feel that they're safe, it gives them more opportunity to share, and you want to get to that place. Sorry, you were muted, but
Sorry, I have another quick question. What if it's a live environment, meaning like it's face to face and you're doing like a seminar or something like that? Would you still apply these same
Always.
principles?
always,
Same ones. Okay.
wherever you are, it's probably even more applicable if you're in a room. And I mean, I've been doing events since I was 16. I've had, I think, 250,000 people through my events. You want to create the same safety, the same feel. That's actually where my experience comes from. To me, the Zoom or online is more of a newer component to this, but it's the same effect. And I remember when the pandemic first started, I actually taught a whole workshop on how to create an amazing online experience that feels similar but different to in person, where it's not a replacement of. Like, I actually hated the word virtual because I love language, and virtually means almost as good as. And I wanted to have a different thinking around it. So you can totally do it in person too. Joanne?
Hi there, how are
Hey,
you doing?
good.
Good. I love the 3Cs.
Oh, cool.
You know, it just had such an impact on me. Your short video as well.
Yep.
I loved it. The
Thank you.
story. And as a psychotherapist, you know, there's, you know, how I usually run my group is we would have a meet and greet day online before we actually kick off the coaching, you know, program. And I usually, in that session, I would ask them for the group to virtually put together a contract, a verbal contract of what will create safety for them, you know.
Nice.
And you know, so, but it's like, I want to scale these groups, so I wouldn't always have that amount of time now, you know, to do that. So I find, you know, bringing in different things like that would be really, really helpful. And maybe even, you know, asking them to virtually throw things on the stage that I can use maybe in that context, through the chat or whatever. So I loved it, and I've been loving the whole program. You've been really helping me to sort out and get a lot of clarity around the big messiness of my toolbox. So it's great. I have a really messy toolbox, and it's being cleared out, so it's good. Thank you so much.
Since you love analogies as much as I do,
I do.
your clients don't need to see your toolbox. You just have
No.
to pull out a tool at a time and be like, this is what we're using today.
That is true.
Actually, let me share this analogy with all of you. It was taught to me, 20 years ago, and I still love it. And it was taught to me from the paradigm of event production, and it's so relevant for all entrepreneurs or coaches. And that is the difference between front stage and backstage. And here's what I mean. So if you're thinking of an event or a show or like Broadway or a conference, anything that has a stage, a concert, right? There's the things you see on stage, that's front stage. That's the experience of the audience. And you want to create an amazing experience for them. Backstage is what they don't see. And that's where all of the work gets done to create an amazing front stage. Backstage could be on fire, but your clients never need to know that. And anything that happens front stage or on stage is supposed to happen, even if you mess up, even if you have to change things. Like, let me share a thing. I normally wouldn't share this with clients, but I'll give you a real life example. At our 2017 Archangel Summit event, so this is like in front of 2,500 people. And this is why, by the way, whenever we do an event, we never publish the agenda because stuff will always change. We had one of our speakers who was supposed to speak 4th out of 6 keynotes or something like that. Their agent messed up their flights. They had to leave at a different time. They had to come so we had to switch the whole agenda like on the fly day of, and then another speaker had to leave by a certain time. It was like, oh my God, this is madness. The audience had no idea, and they're never going to know. And to the audience, the show was the best show ever. And for us, we're like, cool, we got this, because stuff like that always happens. It's going to happen in your business. You're going to have a weird tech issue one day, whatever it is. So always think front stage, backstage, and and always think from the perception of the audience that whatever happens is supposed to happen. So thank you for letting me share that. Julie?
I love the zoom out idea and the elegant phrasing that you had of, that's a great question. Here's what I want you all to think about. I love that. And I just want to say about front stage, backstage, I'm experiencing a ton of backstage issues with Teams because I have to do some facilitation for a particular client in Teams, and oh my, I much prefer Zoom.
Totally. Yeah, I get it. And thank you for all of that, Julie. Sophie?
Always catch me with my mouth full. My fault for eating. The homework can be quite critical in achieving results. And so I wonder how you feel about, not checking up, but, sort of keeping track and asking people if they've done the homework or not. I know you don't particularly, but just wondering what your thoughts are on that.
This is a fantastic question. Okay, so I won't bring it up during calls. I have a system for myself where I'm maintaining track of where people are at as much as I can figure out based on stuff that gets posted or shared or commented on, so that if I see someone who may need more support, I'll start to reach out and ask. Part of the opportunity, challenge, and journey for us as guides is that if you have a client who's either not showing up for calls or not getting stuff done or whatever it is, they may start to feel negative emotion or guilt or shame. And for me, I never want that to get in people's way of creating their own transformation. And I also don't want people to not show up for a call, because from their paradigm, they're battling limiting beliefs, and they're battling imposter syndrome, and they're battling all the stuff. And then they're probably thinking, oh man, I'm not getting the work done. Like in my context, it might be someone might think Gio thinks I'm the worst student ever, and I don't want the other members to know how terrible I am, and all that, like that kind of shit that happens in your head for myself included. It's happened to me in groups that I've been a part of. And that's why I wouldn't ever say, by the way, does everyone have their homework done today? Like, I don't want that feeling on the calls. And maybe this is a meta lesson for all of us, but if you are feeling that right now, you're safe here. Like, just keep going. No one's judging you except yourself. So the lesson here is to realize that, and we're all kind of in that same boat. And you're always going to have some students or members who will get things done faster and excel faster, and that may be habitual for them, and that's awesome. And you're gonna have people who need more support. But I think maybe the lesson is for you to keep track, if backstage, there we go, not front stage. So you can keep a note of who needs help and support where. And if you're ever going to communicate, don't come from a place of judgment, or you may think you're coming from a positive place, but just to be careful with your language so that it comes from love and support. Catherine?
I don't think I had a question if you're.
Yeah, no, just asking from feedback.
From the psychotherapy perspective, I also wanted to add that I think it's super important to have some ground rules that people buy into. And one of those things, and I noticed this isn't something that you've talked about yet, is I always have Vegas rules. You know, what's said here stays here.
Nice.
Because I mean, when you get that vulnerability, people might share something that they don't necessarily want
Right.
repeated. And I wanted to ask, you know, about that, like in terms of creating that safety. People put things in the chat and they might be really stoked about it. And then they might think, holy crap, what did I just share? So do you have a suggestion around that?
Yeah, it's I think we should all do something similar. On different calls that I've done, we have a thing called the Archangel Code that I go through, which talks about our code of conduct to be in the community. And it's essentially sharing our values, but in a way that everyone understands what it means to operate in our community. And then it depends on the type of work you do. Like for a psychotherapist or anyone in that space, you're doing deep work that's super vulnerable, and you want to for sure create even more safety for your clients, and especially in a group environment. And it depends on, right? So depends on also what you want as the coach or as the leader. Sometimes, especially in this day and age, people may share stuff on social media. Like I'll do events or whatever it is, and a client might take a photo or a screenshot of the coaching call and say, hey, I was just in this cool coaching call. I'm okay with that as long as private things from specific members aren't shared. In any group that we run, whether it's Odyssey or Academy or Synergy, I am highly protective of the group. And to the point where, I'll give you an example. One of the things that was a challenge for us over the past few years is I'll have someone interested in one of our programs and they'll say, can I jump into one of the coaching calls to see what it's like? And that probably would have been the clincher of having them join, because once someone's in one of these groups, they're like, oh, this is amazing. But I always say, no, I don't ever allow that to happen, because I want to protect the conversation of the existing members. There has to be commitment to be in the group for that to happen. The solution was to create test drive versions of our group programs, which is an actual tool I taught our Academy members yesterday of how to lead a gifted group coaching call to give people like a test drive of what it's like. But yeah, I'm very protective over this stuff.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Jenna?
Oh, I've been typing many things. So what would you like me to talk about?
What you found most useful?
I am enjoying the general, do the regular thing that works, especially as an ontological coach, like how you use words and language to create an experience and to activate something in someone else's brain, their right brain, or like the language already practiced. Like even when you say the question, I feel my brain search for the answers, and it's so well phrased to not mess with things that work well. So just continuing to hear the repetition is a really good thing. And for me personally, showing up Wednesday, I have here's my stuff, and just having that experience that then my clients will have that experience of like, here's your time. It's the same time. Just this consistency builds trust anyway. So yeah, those things. The teaser thing is cool too. Like I know I want to do a teaser call for as an enrollment, as a sales tool, to do a group sales call versus personal, because we talked about that, like where someone is just going to feel so good, they're going to just want a one-on-one, and it's like, no, this is how good the group feels,
right?
To have them fall in love with that form. Yeah,
love it. Thank you.
Thanks.
I'll hear from a couple more people. Oh, Anne-Marie, can you share?
Sorry, got to unmute.
That's okay.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yep.
So I just made a huge move. So I've been trying to keep everything up. So for the people who say, you know, not to judge, thank you for that, because it's been very tough. And
Yep.
I almost didn't join because of that, because I knew the move was coming up. But I listened to all the sessions today, all the modules. And so for me, it's watching the formula, because that's my hardest thing. And to know that the toolbox is there. You know, I'm just a newbie in creating this new business. So for me, you are experiencing different levels of people. So that is another challenge, because people are, you know, some are, you know, already have a lot of clients, some don't, some are just starting. So you have to be also very conscientious and aware of that as well. And so that was another piece, because I did start feeling judged, you know, like, oh God, I'm not doing it. And so thanks for that, because I'm like, ooh, this has been intense already. Right. So for me, it's taking the notes and then going back to the modules now. And I think that will be the biggest takeaway, because the modules will be there. Right. And then also your live sessions are there. So I can go back and do it at my own time, even though I'm going to miss your own, you know, editing. So my takeaway is watching your formula and taking these courses over the last, you know, 2 years of how you are very methodical. So for me, that's the biggest takeaway, is the methodical method. And for people who are not exactly left-brained, need help with that.
Yeah, we thank you. And we all have different gifts, and we can, when we're in a group environment, we can borrow each other's gifts. So please borrow from me. I love it. Aaron?
Hey there. Hey. Sorry, what did I write?
We can hear you.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah, as far as what's been most helpful, or what I'm...
Yes, please.
Yeah, I think when Jenna said consistency builds trust, I was like, I'm writing that down quick. I think that's just so, you know, hearing some of the repetition, and I think the 3 C's, my left brain was like, oh God, yeah, you know, but a lot of what you're talking about, you know, really sitting, because this is my first, I'm going to be doing a lot of teaching in the rest of my career, but I've never taught a group. I've only taught one-on-one, even though I've done it for a long time. So the idea of like sitting with myself and like coming up with a code of conduct, or coming, you know, like not calling it something so sterile, but, you know, really building the container, not just cognitively, but energetically, and really fiercely protecting the vibe, not just during the live calls, but like during the whole, you know, if it's a private Facebook group and all of that. I think all of this, between the strategy and the simplicity, because a lot of us overcomplicate everything. I love that you just keep it
simple. Yeah.
So thank you. Thank you for all.
You're welcome. I'm sure you, when you had your clinic, you experienced patients with the same level of vulnerability that all of us would face with our own clients in whatever the environment is, maybe even more, and similar to like the psychotherapy world, or where they're sharing their health challenges, potentially, yeah, but things that they probably haven't told anybody else, right? And that's the safety that we all want to create, and that's why even curation of your groups is important too, where you want the people protected not just by you but by each other. And that's what I love doing that. I've been doing that forever.
Right.
It's now, it was a gift that I think whenever you have a gift and you harness it and you realize you have it, even though it takes forever for you to realize you have it, and then you start training it, it becomes a superpower. And I feel like curation has become a superpower for us, and I want to teach it to all of you. Emmy has a question.
Yes, thank you. So when you have that zoom out, which is absolutely really important, and I appreciate you sharing that. And I want to share that the whatever happens to the audience is supposed to happen. That's the part that I'm still learning that lesson. I'm getting better, but I'm still learning. Anyways, my question is, when you zoom out, if you didn't answer that person's question really, which can happen,
Yep.
then what can happen for that person's question? Is there a way you recommend that that person's question can be answered for their specific situation?
I think with practice, you'll get better and better at making sure the question is answered, but it's answered in a way that serves more than one person. If you feel like you haven't answered the question, and by the way, on that note too, for all of you, see how I did for all of you, I always do that. It's like ingrained as a habit now, but I want to make sure everyone's looped in. You may be asked a question that you don't have an answer for. And that's going to be common because you can't know everything, and then you're co-creating what you're doing. So I think to always have the opportunity of saying, let me think about it, and then on our next call, I'll share training or an idea or a solution for that, or we can continue the conversation in our discussion area, in our Facebook group, or in our whatever it is. So if you can't answer a question, then have like a continuation of the conversation in some way.
Right.
So the person feels taken care of, and you're learning too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that feels good to me. Thank you.
You're welcome. Mike?
So I guess just on the same lines of zooming out, is there anything that you do that tries to build those relationships so that you can take what seems like a very specific question and then more generalize it? Are there things you can help us to get in that frame of mind so you are answering the question?
Let me think.
Or is it just practice?
I think it's for sure a practice thing, because it'll be industry specific. Meaning, in my context, the questions are going to be either business growth related or marketing related, or maybe even personal development that relates to an entrepreneur or coach. That's going to be completely different than my fiance Stephanie, where her question, I've actually been on a lot of her calls where, here's a perfect example. I forgot okay. I want to do the keto diet, but I've had my gallbladder removed, or something along those lines, where it's like, okay, not everyone in the calls had their gallbladder removed. So she may specifically answer the question super quick, but then find a way to talk about the keto diet for everybody, so that you still make people feel connected and the person feels seen with their question too. See what I'm saying? So you can try to, what you don't want is a 5-minute conversation about the gallbladder, or a 10-minute conversation about that specific person's challenge, because then it won't make sense for everybody else.
So how do you, just on that, I guess that was my second thought, is how do you politely, not have that 5 or 10 minute discussion? How do you sort of steer people off that?
Again, this is another practice thing. I think I'm good at keeping my answers short enough. Okay. It's an energy, and Stephanie isn't. She loves. So if someone asks her a science question, she'll talk for, I don't know, 20 minutes. If you could, so what we do now, this is a hilarious thing. She just walked by. Our team will keep her in check. And it's coming from a place of love, because she wants to answer. She loves geeking out on science stuff, but then she'll go like 5 minutes over the call. That happens a lot. So so it depends on your style. But I think trying to keep answers like the brevity of the answers, so that the person gets what they want, everyone gets what they want, and you're not in a 10-minute conversation.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so I think we'll end today's session here. Your mission, if you all remember, is to go into campus in the discussion and tell us where you need the most help right now. so that we can lead by example and co-create the next future sessions to help all of you get more momentum. So thank you all again for today. See you all very soon. Bye-bye.